Hello and welcome back to the Fixing Football podcast. We are here, episode 60. This was meant to be our jubilant homecoming of triumph with a European trophy, a major international title, but wasn't to be. I'm here with Liam O'Meara and Scott Naylor. Scott, how are you doing, mate?
I'm very well, all things considered. A bit deflated after the showing yesterday, but you know, it happens. We've got to pick ourselves up again. How are you?
I'm very much the same. Liam, what about you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. You know, it's 2 near misses in 2 months for club and country. Well, 3 actually, because we missed out on automatics on the final day, so don't forget that. So 3 near misses in 3 months. So yeah, I'm pretty buoyed, enjoying my football at the moment. Yeah, so all good for me.
Well, luckily the Open is this week, so I could take my mind off it a little bit. But otherwise, no Luke tonight. We were all at the match last night. We all watched it together for a podcast outing, and he said some pretty tasty things about the Spanish. So he's now on the run from the authorities, and we wish him well with that. Let's start with some positives about our tournament, because it's going to get negative real quick here. I can feel it already. It's coming. I'm
not sure it will, actually. But anyway, well, let's see. Let's see how it goes.
I haven't picked the best crowd for it to turn positive. So if I'm doing it, let's just start. Scott, who can come out of this tournament with their head held high for England?
There's a handful. Jordan Pickford, absolutely. He was fucking brilliant last night. And all through the tournament, he's been good, but last night in particular, it could have been about 4 or 5-1 if not for Pickford. So
yeah, I said that he literally has not put a finger on this tournament. No. There was some question marks about the Xavi Simons goal, but I think that was just people being picky. I think that was otherwise, yeah. And I was expecting something to happen, because he is prone to the odd mistake here and there, and it's been quite a while since he's had one. But yeah, I agree, he's one of them, flawless.
Yeah, well, maybe touch more on Pickford later, but I think he's hard by the Everton stink. I think he's actually a good goalkeeper playing for a very bad team, but
that is quite a big stink as well, I would say.
Yeah, it's a lingering,
honking.
Yeah, it's a lingering stench that you can't really shake off. But yeah, so Pickford, Mark Gahey. He was I'm pretty sure he got named team of the tournament as well, if I saw that right. I'll have to double check that, but I thought he was good. Probably Mainu. Cole Palmer, in the brief cameos he had, was by far our most influential and best player. Saka, I thought, did himself justice. And Ollie Watkins, in his very brief cameo, he got his moment. But I think that's about it. I think the rest, we had a lot of underwhelming players. All of the in quotation marks big players that we took kind of let us down, I thought.
Liam, do you agree, disagree with any of them points?
Pretty much agree on all points. I would say on the Xavi Simons goal with Pickford, I don't blame Pickford. I just think that's his weakness. I think across him in the top corner, he's not the tallest goalkeeper in the world. That is a weakness. It's not bad. It's just where, like, it's like a blanket that doesn't cover your whole body. You can't like cover every part of it. That's his weakness at the end of the day, because he's what is he? I know he's short in goalkeeper terms, probably a good foot taller than me in real life, but in goalkeeper terms he's short. So that shot across him, particularly hit at pace like that, he will struggle against. But I agree, he's been fantastic. I agree with pretty much everyone Scott mentioned. I think the only other one I would add in, just as someone who sort of watched it and find it quite interesting, the role of sub-goalkeepers, I think I'd give Aaron Ramsdale a bit of a shout, because he looked like he was the team's biggest cheerleader. And I think there's something in that, particularly when you know you're not going to get a game. And maybe he's had a lot of practice at Arsenal, I'd say, this year. But I would actually, in that England sort of tournament environment, I thought it was quite good to see. Just something I noticed. Almost easy to do.
I do like that, when, as well, because you notice when, like, Tony come on and was involved in a goal for Kane, one of the early matches, and obviously Ollie Watkins got his moment last week, that in their post-match interviews, they'd spoken about being frustrated about not playing. I mean, with Kane's form, it's probably understandable, but you don't need that sort of. I'm trying to think of the word, but I don't know, and like pent up frustration. It's not. I don't think that bodes well. I mean, they're both great strikers in their own right, but on the day, neither of them are Harry Kane. Now we can speak about Harry Kane's form in this tournament on a separate point, because I think he's had a stinker, to be honest. But yeah, you're right on the Ramsdale point. I think he looked like he was there for the team, played his part really well. So yeah, I agree. So I don't know. I'm trying to think, what else positive can we take out of this tournament? Another final?
I think
Yeah, you have to. You got to mark it up as a positive.
it's a good showing in a sense, and we'll start like if you take a step back and look at from the outset. I would say we pretty much all agreed at the start that they wanted the two best sides, and they've finished in the top two of it. So they've kind of achieved not the minimum, because it's hard to say minimum final. They could have easily got France in a earlier round, which is what we thought at the start. None of us really saw Spain coming, but they've kind of hit the expectation, I would say. I think anything beyond final is with the gods a little bit, and I do genuinely think Spain were just better. And if you look at the sides that Spain have beaten on the run, Italy, Germany, France, England, you cannot deny that they've earned the right to win it. So
yeah,
I don't think, but that doesn't really tell the full story either, which we'll get into the negatives in a moment. But in terms of objectives, they achieved the objectives, I would say.
Yeah, I got to agree with that. There's not. I could feel the deflation. Go on, Scott.
The one positive, I think there's a lot of good players that we can see who are quite clearly going to be big parts of the England squad for the next tournament. Probably Mainu being one. Cole Palmer's going to be there. There were a lot of other players who are really important for England are still going to be super young. I'm not sure. Saka will be like 25 by then. Is he like 23 now, Saka?
22.
Yeah. So he's going to be 24, 25 by the time that comes around. Bellingham's still only going to be nowhere near his prime. So, yeah, I think that's cause for positivity, is that in some key areas of the pitch, we are still going to have some talent who are nowhere near the peak yet.
So let's just get into it. Why did it go so wrong? Are we right that the majority of the country is pointing the finger at Southgate? Should the players show a bit more responsibility? Who, in particular, has had a stinker of a tournament? Shouldn't have been there. Scott, you can start on any of them points and then we'll see where it goes.
I think there are three players in particular who really let us down the entire tournament, and it was Harry Kane, Declan Rice, and Jude Bellingham. I think you take in what was mostly the consensus best striker on the planet, Declan Rice, who's just come off a brilliant season with Arsenal, who almost came away with the league title, and Jude Bellingham, who is, to borrow a line, the chosen one. And I don't think any three of them turned up in any game whatsoever. Bellingham, I will give him his due. He had moments, but not good performances, and that seems to me to be a little bit of a trend with him, particularly at Madrid as well. He was good at popping up in the last minute to save Madrid, but by all accounts, his overall performances weren't very strong, and that just seems to carry over to England. So I think the big characters who we relied on, you could probably include Kyle Walker in this group as well. The big players who are meant to be the leaders and the big personalities in the team didn't come through for us, and we seemed to we were always hoping for a moment of brilliance to take us through, and more often than not, we came away with it and we found something from somewhere because we just had enough quality to get through a bit of adversity. But yeah, there didn't really ever seem to be a plan. One thing I saw, I think that kind of backs this up, is that when Rodri went off last night, there was just a like for like sub. There was another guy who could step in and do his part and fill that hole. Whereas when we were making subs, it's always a role change for somebody. It's always a system change. Like you had Mainu leave for Palmer, nowhere near a like for like replacement. I think we saw that in other I think the only times when Kane went off, you're going striker for striker. So we seem to be a bit devoid of any kind of clear structure or ideas of what to do. And I just don't think Southgate was tactically up to the job of competing with these other coaches.
Liam, well, same question to you really, and following on from what Scott said, but Southgate, is it all on him?
I'm very reluctant to sort of openly call out Southgate too much because his actual achievements do speak for themselves. That they are their huge progress as a country in terms of actual results. But again, if we're looking at this tournament as a singular thing, forget everything else before it. I sort of hint before. I don't think us reaching the final tells the full story. And I bring it back to sort of an earlier podcast that we did when maybe after the Slovenia game, 0-0, where we basically talked about the lack of midfield and the lack of being able to get the ball and hold the ball in that area of the pitch with any kind of confidence. And we never have solved that problem. And I think it's down to the fact that he was obsessed with the idea of playing Bellingham and Foden in the same team. And I think that has cost us. I genuinely believe if we'd have sorted that problem earlier and been able to attack this in a different way, we could have gone into that final with some belief, because I don't really think in our heart of hearts we thought we were going to win that final. And I think it's purely because every single one of us, and I include the players in this, fully expected Spain to grip hold of the game. And they're not world-class midfielders in that midfield. Yes, Rodri is, but Fabian isn't. Dani Olmo, questionable. He's all right. He's a very good player. But when you look at our midfield, it's Rice, Bellingham, Foden, whoever you're setting it up. These are comparable players. But essentially, they're not playing to a system of midfield. We were obsessed with this idea of getting the ball as wide as early as we could, but not putting the ball in the box. It's a very weird thing. I think Southgate's flaw could be seen when we equalised yesterday. Because every single one of us could see that Spain were the better side in that game. But we had a couple minutes where they were wobbling.
Yeah.
You have to go for it then. Because they're not that opportunity will go. And I think we've got a throw in. And I went absolutely nuts about it. You might remember because we were lining up to take a long throw. And we went back, and within 3 seconds it was back with Pickford. And then it was out of play on the other side. And the whole momentum was gone. And I was losing my fucking mind about it, because that was the chance about it. That was the absolute chance. Alexa's booting off in the background as well.
No, I've seen that. We've seen it on corners as well, where we've just like we've been all up on the attack and we just die. We just kill it. We end up back at Pickford just so quick. And I think we have a team of players used to playing a high pressing game. If you look at Foden, Rice, Saka, Bellingham, Mainu, Gallagher, whoever else is playing in midfield with Rice, they're all high pressing, high intensity players. Now, blame it on a long season if you want, but that just didn't seem to be the game plan at all. We weren't ratting them down at any point.
Press from us was really poor. And I don't buy there's no this long season. I just think it's nonsense. Every player in that Spain team has had a similarly long season, give or take a few games. So I just don't buy it. I just don't think we were up. For some reason, we just didn't seem like we were second to every loose ball. And yeah, like you guys pointed out, the amount of times I find myself saying, like, how have we ended up back here? A minute ago, we were literally on the edge of their area, and then Pickford somehow got it. How the fuck has this actually happened? So yeah,
it's like
very frustrating.
You can't. The players who we have at our disposal in an attacking sense do this week in, week out. Are creative, explosive, go past people, play 1-2s. Surely they can work together, and they're not waiting.
The problem you've got is that the foundations were wrong. So you could have R9, Messi, and Cristiano Ronaldo as a front three, but if you're not getting the ball to them because the foundations are all broken, that was the problem. The football can be a very simple game, and if you're not controlling the ball and controlling the midfield battle, you will get found out eventually. And we weren't controlling it against Slovenia, Slovakia. I think the Dutch were poor. That gave us a lot of false hope, I think. And even they started to get a grip of the game in the second half. So that's what it's come down to. We weren't able to use these attacking players. This is why I do feel a little bit for Kane, even though he's been poor. I'm sure we'll cover Harry Kane in a minute, but the whole foundation of the side was wrong. Like, you're not going to if you input shit, your output shit.
Yeah,
and that was the problem.
Well, let's talk about Kane then for a second and take the pressure off Southgate for a minute. But Kane has not looked right since day one of this tournament to me. You know, he's at the end of the season, he was out with once Bayern knew they couldn't win the league. He was benched pretty much, and he's had this ongoing back injury for a while, and that clearly he hasn't recovered from that. And to me, it seems that Southgate thinks a 50% fit Harry Kane is better than a fully fit Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney. Now, whether there's some ego involved, there's some desire. I know we spoke about not having Kane on the team sheet might be a hindrance to us just in terms of giving the opposition a lift. But I mean, just talk about Kane for a second. Whoever wants to go, Scott, if you want to.
Yeah. So it was evident from the first, like you said, from the first game that Kane wasn't quite there, and he's done this before. He did this to Spurs in their one and only hope at Champions League glory. He was falling apart in that game. In the run up to that game, he was not fit, and he dropped off quite a lot. And he played the whole game, if I remember rightly. And granted, they were always going to be up against that Liverpool team, but he should not have been on the pitch for that game. He made Spurs' job so much harder than it had to be. And it happened again here. And the thing is, realistically, player, particularly what we all can somewhat agree based on his goal scoring abilities, an elite player like Harry Kane, he's never going to go to Southgate and say, I'm not fit, leave me on the bench. That is not going to happen. Maybe it should, but that realistically is not happening. So then it comes to, that's got to come back again, annoyingly, then to Southgate to say, you are not fit enough to play in this game and help the team. You need to sit it out. And we had games where he could have done it. For example, like once we'd won the first game, we were near enough through anyway. We didn't really need to. The pressure wasn't on that much after the first game. So why not give Tony or a Watkins a full game, rest him for a bit? If you feel like, right, I could use Kane as a weapon in the later parts of games, fine. But there were some relatively safe games he could have experimented a bit and just chose not to.
Yeah.
And that's got to sit with Southgate.
I think it was telling that I think it was the third group game maybe, or maybe the first knockout game that he took him off for the first time. I can't remember which game that was. And then he's took him off every game since then. And gradually, earlier and earlier, I think it was about 65th minute, he took him off in the final.
Yeah.
And I just think that tells the whole story that he was never fit. He was never going to complete 90 minutes trying to wrap that defence because that wasn't even happening. He mooched around. Do you know he has never registered a shot on target in a final in his whole career? Zero shots on target, 0 goals in a final.
I can't say it surprises me. And another thing with Harry Kane is it's a completely unlogical and unscientific argument, but the Kane curse, there's more evidence for it being a real legitimate thing than there is for it not being. Because that lad, he has to have a silver allergy because he just cannot get anywhere near a trophy. And it baffles. I don't understand how you can move to the Bundesliga, to Bayern Munich, score a record number of goals, and still walk away with nothing. Like there are some bad juju forces in the universe working against this guy not to win anything.
Liam, we spoke about trying to get Palmer on the pitch earlier quite a few times. Also, Trent needed him on at some point. I mean, what else do you think could have been the fixes that we needed to get on, that needed to happen over the course of this tournament? Seeing as though we're to fix things.
Yeah, in terms of the tournament, it's difficult because I just it all comes again down to that midfield, and the problem is, to a certain extent, the players did let Southgate down in those positions as well. Like I think Rice had a really poor tournament as well.
Yeah,
really
big
poor,
time.
and I'm disappointed in that because I'm a big fan of his. So and when you see the difference between how Rodri's now being held up and how Declan Rice has been held up after the tournament, I think it tells you a story. These are two players that theoretically are competing to be the best defensive midfielder in the world, and I think they are streets apart.
Yeah.
So that was disappointing. So I think that didn't help. In terms of what would I have done in the final, I'll look at that. I probably would have brought Trent Alexander-Arnold on for Kyle Walker for two reasons. Number one, it might have helped in the midfield battle. But number two, you're playing Kyle Walker because of the defensive side, and he was horse shit defensively in the final. Both goals, theoretically, he carries some blame for, but will get away with it because he's Kyle Walker and seems to get away with everything, that kid. Fair play to him, seems to be able to run fast enough away from all his problems in life. But Cole Palmer as well. Yeah, we talked about him before the podcast, and we talked about it a lot. Him and Saka was a shame because they were both our best two attackers on the same side. So there had to be a way for it. Could in hindsight, Bellingham played his best football this season as a false nine? Could he have been pushed up into that position instead of Kane and make everything a little bit more fluid?
I was thinking that yesterday, whether just to get Kane off, basically, and because Bellingham's so clutch that to keep him on and just chuck him up there as a nine, and while we had the advantage, but that didn't last very long. So
yeah, I don't know. It's all going to be analysed and super analysed by people that are more analytical than us, but it's just all fucking shit in it.
It is, mate. So
especially after that goal, that was because we all, like you said, the belief maybe wasn't there, but amongst us it was steadfast. We didn't even think it was. I wasn't sweating Spain at all, and as soon as Palmer scored, I just thought, right, this was all just part of the script. This is where it turns, and I genuinely when you said it right, Martin. That goal, the second Spain goal, just didn't feel like it was part of the plan. It didn't feel real. Like you just like, oh shit. Oh, they scored. No, we've got to do another. Yeah, we've got to do it again. Oh no.
No, that Spain goal, 86 minutes, was just a dagger. It was horrible, and then 4 minutes of injury time that was eaten up. 2.5 minutes of that was Spain on the floor and us trying to find the ball for a goal kick or something like that. It just felt like nothing happened in extra time. There was no chance of an attack or anything. They just killed it.
I have to say, Martin, fair play for trying to get the. Obviously, for those that don't know, Martin was DJing in the event we were all at yesterday at Courtyard.
Yeah.
And Martin did his absolute best after the game to pump the music and get everyone up. But I must admit, I thought he was struggling. I thought it was going to be quite a tough crowd at that point.
I got an instruction just right at the full time whistle. This was on the 93rd minute. Right at full time whistle, play your best song. It's like, what the fuck's my best song?
The best.
Just play the best song. We want to keep them in. We want to keep people in the bar. I was like, mate, it ain't happening. If we lose, it's going to empty this pretty sharp. Yeah, it was. It was hard work that last couple hours in there.
How many stayed in?
There was it slowly dwindled off, and there was about 15 in for the last hour. All wanting England songs and yeah.
Obviously not football regulars then, because I would have
had some requests for Hey Jude and Three Lions. I was like, mate, it's over. Wouldn't know.
When I got home, I'd left the coverage on for the dog, obviously. And when I was doing it, I actually put it on ITV. I was like, don't put ITV on BBC. So we left that on, and literally as I walked in and got in, it was Morata lifting a trophy, and I was just like, oh, this is a grim night. Like, how's he a international winning captain?
I know.
But anyway, fair enough.
So, right. Let's just wrap up England with Gareth Southgate's future. Question for you both. Scott, I'll start with you. Does Southgate stay on? No.
I would be amazed if he did. I kind of feel like, regardless of what happened yesterday, I think he was probably ready to go. I think 'cause if I'm Gareth Southgate, I'm thinking, right, if I win, I can leave a hero and a legend, and there would almost be no point. The odds of him going back to back in major tournaments are obscenely slim. So, I kind of feel like it makes sense either way, because if he loses, he can leave and think, right, I've taken this team as far as I can possibly take them. Now it's time for somebody else to push on and get us over that final hurdle. And again, and like I said, if he wins, he can leave on top and go down as a hero. So I can't see a world in which he stays. One, I think he wants to leave, and I also think the FA now have to look at it and say, if we actually want to be serious and win something, we've been trying this same tactic for what, 8 years now? Is it 8 years he's been manager,
Yeah.
give or take? You've got at some point you've got to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, we've got as close as we're ever going to get. We've got to try something else. So I can't see. I don't know what you two think, but I just can't see him sticking around.
Yeah, Liam, where do you sit? I mean, I'm not asking what you think's going to happen, but what's your view on Southgate now? Does he stay? Does he deserve to stay?
It's not changed since after Qatar for me, where I think I still think this is one tournament too many for Gareth. And that hasn't changed. I think he can leave with some. This could have been an absolute car crash of a tournament for him. Like he was on the verge with the Slovakia game of disgrace, basically Roy Hodgson style disgrace.
Yeah.
To the point where nothing he'd done previously would have mattered. I don't think it was that bad of a defeat. So if I were him, I'd take my money and run. I think personally, I think he'll end up at USA. They need a
What do you mean?
manager. Well, they need a manager. The manager just
Oh,
resigned.
sorry, right.
Yeah. 2 years off a home World Cup, and he is a manager of now international pedigree. I just don't see him getting the level of domestic club in England that he thinks he deserves. I just don't see it there for him. I don't think anyone. I think most clubs are in tune with how fan sentiment is, and they wouldn't hire Southgate. Can you imagine Chelsea? I know Chelsea Twitter, Scott, is particularly volatile. Can you imagine if Southgate was linked with that job?
Oh my God. It'd be an absolute shit show.
And I would say you're currently the worst off of those big clubs that he thinks he should be walking into.
I'd say so, yeah.
So I just don't see it there for him. So yeah, I think that's what will happen. I also think it's what should happen. Yeah.
Fair enough. I mean, where I sit is, whilst I don't think he deserves to. I don't think he has earned the right to stay as England manager, even if he wanted to. Despite how far we've gone in tournaments, we've had 3 proper shots with him now: the Euros, the World Cup, and this Euros. And we've come up short each time. I know it's been by a margin, by a penalty kick at one point. And the other side of me is that I feel like he's took us so close that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I almost want to see him do it.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to see him just get over that. Because I know if it were me, I'd be thinking, as much as it's tempting to leave, I'd be thinking, no, I've fucking come that close. I can't just leave it there.
That fruit machine ready to pay out, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, literally. Yeah, but I think the other part of it as well is our not just the major tournament, last hurdle failings. I think our record against what you'd all consider the big teams in the world has been so bad under him. Like anyone who probably could beat us does tend to beat us. And that Netherlands game is probably the first, I guess, what you might call big nation on paper, in inverted commas, who we got past.
There's
in
Germany
ages.
in the last Euros as well.
Yeah, but then they were an absolute mess. Like that Germany team of that Euros was absolutely abysmal. So that wasn't. And I think that's something to look at in the Spain thing. Like like the Italy team they beat was garbage, and I don't think the Germany team was much better. But yeah, I think that's something that we also need to work on improving. Is when we come up against good opposition in tournaments or out of them, we've got to improve there. We've got to start striking some fear because I just don't think that we do, and we clearly haven't under Southgate in all these years.
There's a fear that comes with it about changing England managers that Southgate has done so much. He's been a massive part of this rebuilding of the sort of national pride behind the team and the togetherness that what comes across. It doesn't always come across on the pitch because we've played like dog shit in this tournament for the large majority. We've probably had about 35 minutes overall in all 6 or 7 games where we've actually looked like a decent football side. But yeah,
at the same time, no one hires you to do a shit job, do they? Like that, his job was to make it better than what it was.
Yes,
and he's done that job.
Yeah,
I don't think England owe him anything. I feel like this idea of I've heard a lot of people who I think try and portray themselves as the super England fan, basically saying things along like, "Well, he's earned the right to make the decision himself." Does he? Fuck. Like, no one ever has that right. England should now make a decision of what's best for England, not what's best for Gareth Southgate.
Yeah,
and that might be to keep Gareth Southgate. They may come to that decision, and but it's always that way around. It's not Gareth's fucking decision, and it never should be.
Yeah.
So let's imagine a world where Southgate has just announced his resignation.
And by the way, that is what TalkSport are expecting to happen. I was having a listen earlier, and they apparently the line is the FA want to keep him, but they're braced for his resignation. The noises around him are resignation impending.
Yeah,
I think he looked a bit shook, especially in the early games when we got through, especially like from through Netherlands onwards. Was it Netherlands? I'm trying to think. The one before that,
Switzerland.
I think from then on, everyone's looked a bit happier, but there's definitely been some rumblings.
Weirdly, as well, I don't know if you heard some of his interviews after the game, but he was almost like in the way he said certain words, he was almost as if he wasn't there anymore. He's like distancing himself. He was instead of like saying like we're in a better position. He's like England are now in a good position kind of thing. Just the way he worded certain things was a bit like it's tense England, which I thought
he's
was
already gone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, by the time anyone hears this, it might have already happened. But let's say England are on the lookout for a new manager now. Sky Bet, other bookmakers are available, but Sky Bet have Graham Potter as the favourite, Liam. Lee Carsley, Eddie Howe, Maurizio Pochettino, Jurgen Klopp, Thomas Tuchel. That makes up like the top 6 or 7. Where would you be? What are you thinking on this on the next England manager then? Let's imagine that it's not Southgate and we're in this now.
Okay, so for me, there's 2 completely different directions you can go. And I feel like you have to weigh up both pros and cons in that nice offices that they have at St. George's Park where they're all sat around and go, right, who the fuck's this going to be? They're going to have one is promote from within. Gareth Southgate worked. Looking at Spain, that worked. Who does that? Who would that be? And what are the pros and cons of that? That's one route, and we'll come back to that in a minute. The second route is who's a proven winner? Who's a big name? Who's someone that most fans will get behind? And who's someone that can handle maybe some of the now bigger egos in the team? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So option 1, pretty much exclusively, I think, points to Lee Carsley. And that's the option I would personally go for. I think he has worked with a lot of these players at youth level, and we have benefited from this before with Southgate. And I think a different direction, someone else with a fresh voice with a different message, but ultimately following a proven plan is a good idea. So that's option 1. Option 2 brings quite a few different people into it. But the one that sticks out most for me is Thomas Tuchel. given what he did at Chelsea with winning the Champions League on relatively short term notice, and he very nearly did it at PSG as well, it seems to me like he could be that kind of approach. So I feel like you have to go one or the other, which to me rules out some of these Eddie Howe, rules out Potter. I'm ruling them out now. I feel like for me it's one of those two, because I think you're going in one of those two clear directions.
Graham Potter was also part of the England setup previously, weren't he? At youth level.
Yeah, but it's going back some time, I think, now, isn't it? That was before he was in Sweden or wherever it is he was, wasn't it?
Oh, right, yeah.
He's just
Scott, which route do you go?
He's just a college teacher, Potter. So, like, anyway, I'll shut up now. Go on, Scott.
I actually think your two shouts, Liam, make the most sense. I personally think Lee Carsley's the way to go. I was looking back at, because as we were talking about, Spain's manager, who up until 2 weeks ago I couldn't have told you with a gun to my head who he was and what his name was. But he's got him won the major trophy. And the last World Cup was won by I think like Lionel Scaloni, I think his name was. He went the Argentina youth team route onto managing the senior team. And then getting these sort of, I'm the first one to say, get a proven winner and get someone who knows how to win stuff. Get Mourinho in. I'd be previously one of the first people to say something like that. But internationally, it doesn't really seem to be that's not the way that you get stuff done, seemingly, overall. So, yeah, I think I would go with Lee Carsley. But if you are not going to go the FA is in the system already, maybe we just need to have a similar message, but maybe someone who's maybe a bit more tactically astute. I don't know if Lee Carsley is that personally, but if that's the way that you go. But yeah, if you are going to go, let's just get a name in, particularly someone who's successful and got a track record, Tuchel is the best person who is available. And I think he's got I think there would be some resistance to us having going back to having a foreign coach again.
A German one as well.
Yeah, German of all things. But I also think he's got the personality. I think he's got the charisma that would get. I think England fans would eventually like him and would warm to it. I think it would be tricky at first, but I think
isn't he?
He's got.
You might know better this than me, Scott, as well. On Tuchel, my understanding is that he likes living in London and still semi-based there, and he wants the job. He is interested in England job as well. That's my understanding with Tuchel.
If it was up to him, he would never have left Chelsea or England. He liked the Premier League, and I think that the quote that always gets bandied around is that he still feels like he's got unfinished business with Chelsea, which I think for a small time factored into why the Man United job didn't quite go on, because I don't think his heart was really there. So he would love to manage in England again. Whether that means England itself, I don't know. But I think he'd be excellent, and his track record in tournaments is exceptional. So I think we could do a hell of a lot worse if that was the way to go.
Martin, would you want a German ex-Chelsea manager to be England manager?
Of all the, regardless of the ex-Chelsea bit, of all the Germans, I think Tuchel is probably my favourite choice for a manager. I can't see Klopp being the England manager. I think his character is too big for the England manager job, which is something that I think Southgate has got down to a T. He's almost got this, like, I don't know, like monarchical role of the whole England setup. He's really calm. So I think he's got that down to a T, and I think Tuchel is closer to that, especially than Klopp would be.
Klopp is far too Liverpool to be England manager, I think.
Funnily enough, you mentioned Mourinho. And
it's not English and all that.
Mourinho doesn't show up on any of the Sky Bet odds. If you scroll down to like...
He's just taken a job, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's just taken a Fenner job, hasn't he?
Well, regardless of that, some of the other names on this list...
This is the reason why. Yeah, well, that's not the reason. But yeah.
No. Like, Phil Neville, 80-1. David Beckham, 100-1. Alan Shearer, 150-1. Sam Allardyce, 200-1. Mourinho doesn't show up on this list. You can't tell me that if England couldn't call him, Mourinho wouldn't drop Fenerbahce. But
is there anyone we're missing? Is there any sort of...
Can I tell you my dark horses who I would prefer over Lee Carsley? And I agree with you about the two different ways to go. Tuchel, yeah, if it happened, I wouldn't be pissed off of it. I am on the side of reluctance of a foreign manager, but I don't know. I just think we respond better to going all English, and I can't wait to not talk about England for a few weeks because I'm absolutely sick of it. But
Sick of
this will get
football,
out soon. Yeah. I quite like the idea of Frank Lampard getting it.
Oh, Martin.
No, this is instead
never
of Lee
wanted to be
Carsley if we went.
I never wanted to be on your side more, but I'm going to need some, and you need to help me out on this one. Fucking hell.
Well, he has a lot more experience than Southgate had
Horrible
coming
experience.
into this job.
Horrible experiences.
Not all horrible.
Not all horrible, but mostly bad.
Take his Derby days into account as well.
Yeah, but his Derby days was just loading Chelsea players that were arguably beyond that level.
Listen, this is well more experience than Lee Carsley's got. You're going with a complete unknown here down this route.
Martin, right, I've known you a long time. I've known you a long time, right? And you're someone who I've considered for a while to be someone who has some good ideas, but has also had some really, really shit ideas as well. And
I'm not saying this is up there with my best.
This is up there with your worst, is what I'm saying. Like, I cannot think of a single reason why you would hire Frank Lampard as England manager.
He's currently 20-1, by the way.
Elaborate for us.
I think this goes down the...
Just got turned down for the Canada job, didn't he, as well, by the way? But carry on.
Did he really? I think it more airs on the side of the Lee Carsley way into the team. I know he's not been part of the youth setup, but he's been an England legend for his 25-year career or something. So I think he would have that respect going in. I think he has shown glimpses that he could be a good manager. I think just the whole way his career's panned out in managerial terms, taking the Chelsea job way too early, didn't do him any favours. And then his second time around at Chelsea was just a bit of a joke session, really. It was like a fucking practical joke on him for a bit.
I blame him a lot less for that than blame the people who hired him. Like, it was already a shit show when he got there. Like, he wasn't, and he's not exactly, Alf Ramsey to turn it around, is he?
No. So that's just hearing me out. I'm not saying I would personally go with him. I just think he's a better shout than, if we're going specifically, than Lee Carsley. Just for I don't know, a young English manager with potentially new ideas who could also, I don't know, sort of fit into Southgate's shadow a little bit, fit into the mould that Southgate's left, as opposed to a whole new way around, like this big name thing. To be honest, I don't really have a preference now. I don't really know.
I think the word's continuity there, isn't it? It's an element of continuity.
Yes, yeah. I just think Frank Lampard probably brings a little bit more than Lee Carsley would to the role. Yeah, Lee can't fail if you've never done anything with Lee Carsley, so yeah.
I know what you mean. Like, it's Frank Lampard's a bigger deal. Like, it's perhaps a name that the players may sit up and take notice of a bit more. But again, I guess a lot of these players would have won the under 23 Euros with Lee Carsley, right? A lot of the players who were bringing into the team now. So I can't. I would love to be able to co-sign you and say, yeah, let's get Lampard in, but I just think his talents lie elsewhere. I don't think he's a very good football manager. And I think it happens with the best players, doesn't it? Like, they can't really translate what made them so amazing. I don't think it's the shit that you can't teach to anyone. Like, Henry was a terrible manager. Like, there's a trend with the best players can't impart their genius because that's what it is. Like, I just did it. Yeah, just do it like this. Oh yeah, Thierry, I'll just fucking do it like how you did it, shall I? Dickhead.
Serena Wiegmann is currently better odds than
what are we doing?
Liam Rossini, for example.
Jesus.
So, right, I think that wraps up England, lads. I'll be glad to not speak about them for a while now.
Yeah, good couple of years. Let's put them away.
Let's wrap it up here. We're back to our regular style of podcasting next week, I think. Some big stuff to be talking about, Liam. The transfer window is fully a go. Lots of stuff happening at Bolton Wanderers.
Yeah, we're in like the second part of this transfer window. Obviously, we've already had one transfer deadline.
Yeah.
30th of June. So we're now into like the second part where deals might happen. We can start talking about some of the big deals. I think tonight, as we're on, Emil Smith-Rowe, been 2 bids for him, one from Palace, one from Fulham.
Yeah, they'll be the 2 clubs who've been fighting out for. I think we're holding out for about 30 million, but
I think Palace makes sense, doesn't it? With Eze obviously being linked with a move and Elise gone already to Bayern, so that's a great opportunity for him. Maybe a loan to buy would probably what I would think if I was him. See if you can have a really good year there. You can build your profile,
makes
can't
good
you?
sense. Makes perfect sense, I think. It's the right sort of manager for him as well.
It's local as well, isn't it? You won't have to move too far. It's a London club as well, so it's not like he's...
There you go. Don't have to move house.
Anyway, so we've got all that to come on the next couple of weeks of episodes. Pre-season will be starting soon. There's loads of other topics we want to be covering. We obviously want to catch up with all the PSR shit. We just spoke about that. The cartel has been a word that's been thrown around. So there's all these topics. If anyone has any suggestions for topics, there's always the comment section on YouTube, and there's always comments on Spotify as well. So if you've got a subject that you think is worth us talking about that you don't think we have covered, let us know. You can always get involved if you are a friendly voice.
I just had a message actually from Luke. He says he wants to do a podcast on Man United, so that'd be good to cover with Luke.
Yeah,
nice
turn this
change.
into the fucking overlap. We do a fucking United episode every other week. So Luke is safe and sound, by the way. He's not been caught by the Spaniards of Bolton just yet. So yeah, I don't want to be one of them guys who says big stuff coming, but we're back to our regular
normal stuff coming.
We might have a new look though. I'm going to be experimenting with a few new looks.
No.
Keep it fresh.
No, we don't like change. No change, please.
You don't like change. But yeah. Right. Thank God that's over. The Euros, not this podcast. It's been a pleasure, lads.
Is this like the official end of season 1 kind of thing for our podcast?
Yeah, it is the end of season 1 for us. But next week, season 2.
Is it now time for warm weather training in Dubai?
I've got some House of the Dragon to catch up on. I've got a Mayor of Kingstown. I've got Vikings Valhalla. So I was hoping to have a couple of weeks off football, to be honest.
No, I've got a whole family I've not seen for 4 weeks. I've got God knows how they're getting on. It's been pretty hectic. So we'll have a catch up, right, lads? Thank you very much for listening. It's www.Fixing Football Podcast for all of your fixing football needs. Catch all our episodes there. Mate, that was class. I just thought of that right off the top.
Yeah, okay. I mean, doesn't.
If you want to fix football, I know a website for you. www.fixingfootballpodcast.com.
And you think it's all right as well? You don't think you should change football? Just listen anyway, because it helps.
No, there's always something.
We've not fixed any of it yet, as it happens. It's the
yet,
same way it was when we found it. So,
but our influence is growing.
It is.
I'm going to blue tick now. I mean, we paid for it, but it still counts.
Everyone has to pay for it now.
Yeah. So we're on the same as like BBC News.
And Elon Musk.
He's a friend of the podcast.
Yes. Right. Bye, guys. Thanks very much, everyone.
Right.
In a bit.